It's every young person's dream to become a professional footballer, but only a small percentage of them make it. This new documentary is the story of Cecil G. Thomas and Jordan Patrick and how they tried to chase the dream. It's about the trials and tribulations, the experiences that they had along the way. I want you to watch this documentary. It's brilliant. Both of these players are part of the AFTV FC team and are featured in the Blood Brothers series. But now I want you to take in this documentary and see their journey.
Please don't use your time that you're not here to go play Xbox, Fortnite, sit and watch Netflix. Don't get me wrong, there's always time for that. But think about what else you could be doing for your future, please. And then lastly, if you don't get a contract, which is what I do not want, I don't want you guys messaging me at this point because it's not too late, but it's just harder to work towards your next goal or what you want to go to or what avenue you want to take if you wait till this stage.
The desire to be challenged, the passion, the feelings, the ability to change the world, the privilege of being noticed, and the seemingly bottomless wealth. The question is, why wouldn't you want to be a footballer? 99.8% of footballers in academies will not get a professional contract. What happens to those who are let go? Born in a footballing family, Cecil Thomas, 21, tells us his story of the undeniable pressures of football.
This is where it all started. I used to be out here morning to night, sun up till sun down. Like, this was it. This was the spot. It taught me so much. If you kick the ball over once she's cleaned her car and it hits it, the dirty ball, if it leaves a print, the ball's gone. My mum was iconic and known for that. So, yeah, man, it keeps you technical ability. You have to keep the ball down, keep the ball, like, head over the ball. Listen, so many little things that you forget, but it's got instilled in me on this pitch here.
It's a dream, isn't it? It's a dream that players want to follow. You know, young aspiring footballers want to follow the fact that actually they've got a chance of becoming a player. 3 of my stepbrothers, who I call brothers, 2 of them, one of them was a really good footballer and the other one was professional. Bobby George played very high level, but never really made it professional, but Kevin made it professional. So he really lived the dream, really. He signed for Charlton, signed for various other places, West Ham, when I was in the Prem. So he was at big clubs, he's lived it, and my dad's seen that lifestyle. He's just like, yeah, keep playing. Everyone loved me. I was scoring goals. I was a good player, but he probably thought you're not close to London enough.
You know, the more voices that you have, it just crowds out your own voice. And I feel like a lot of the time, parents are trying to live out their dreams in their child. They will push them into things that makes them feel a bit more uncomfortable. It makes them feel like, if I didn't have a good game, that's it, it's the end.
Although there's the dream for the player, there is a dream for the family too, that if they are a professional footballer, and a lot of the time you see it with dads and mums, that actually it's a dream that they had that they could never achieve. So they're almost trying to fill that void in times.
Kevin George, my brother, he had all the connections, all the plugs. He was the one that was like, he took me under his wing and said, now's the time to see if we can get a contract for you. One day changed my life. It was summer, I think like 2015. I got a call from the clubs. They called the school and said, can we have Cecil for day release?
So day release is an education programme whereby boys are taken out of school for a day and they come into the football club and do a football programme with a bit of education.
It was a week of my GCSEs actually. The next day I had an exam and I went. My mum was quite wary about it because I'd obviously had the exam the next day, and she was like, you need to revise for it. But I was like, this one felt like I needed to be there. So we're playing a training match against the first team. I started against Claude Davis. I was a striker, he was a defender. He's Jamaica international, Claude Davis. He's now retired, I believe. But he was at Crawley at the time. I absolutely spun him a treat. I got the ball to my feet, I spun him, and as I spun him, he elbowed me in the mouth and the lip. No, the mouth and the nose, and my lip bust open, but it was in the box. And the manager at the time went over to the youth team player who was doing the linesman, and he went over to him and said, was that not a penalty? And the youth team player was like, yeah, of course. And it was a penalty, but he was obviously nervous and didn't want to. Claude was quite a big figure in the first team, and a lot of people were scared of him. So he gave the penalty, and I took it. I scored, and that week I signed my contract for Crawley Town. When I played, I was fit. Like, I worked hard. My brother Kevin said, it's one thing I want you to do every game. As long as you just leave the pitch and you're knackered, like, the least you can do is work hard, work your socks off. And I was one of the fittest in my clubs.
This is Broadfield Stadium, home of Crawley Town FC and a major turning point in Cecil's life.
I remember just having a full experience, all the stuff being put on the board, tactics, films of the team were playing. I remember doing a dance here before we went out. I was gassed. Did a little dance. I did a head slide actually along here. I did like all of this stuff, like ball to the music. Yeah, old school. Back in the day, just breaking it down before we went out. Got the boys ready for the game, really, and walking out onto the pitch. And I used to sit here. Just used to sit here. Crazy. Mad. What a time. What a time. I went in amazing. We scored goals. Pre-season, absolutely smashed it. I was with the first team a lot. Woo! It's significant. It's a big stamp in my life here. This is mad. This is crazy. So they broadcast up there.
Crawley Town. What was, in one word, what would that, or a few words, what would that evoke?
I don't even, I don't know, the word Crawley Town comes to mind is, it's significant. Like, I would want to say home, but it's never been home for me.
We got hold of Kevin George, who is not only Cecil's brother and former player, but the author of Psychology, a book that reveals the psycho-emotional side of football.
He had a scholarship from Italia Conte.
Cecil was always interested in different sporting activities. One of his pastimes, unexpectedly, was dancing. He attended Italia Conti, the Academy of Theatre Arts, regularly at the weekends.
And they were basically saying, look, we're going to give you this diploma, you qualified, you can become a teacher. And I said, look, take it.
What, you're going to go going from school to maybe going to college and not get paid, or you're going to go and be a footballer and get paid to do what you love for a couple hours a day?
And he's like, no, I want to play football. So I was speaking to a few of my friends, and I was like, I don't want him to play football. But I said, at the same time, I have to put myself in his shoes, that if someone could give me an opportunity, I'll be fuming if they didn't give it to me, especially if it's my brother.
Of course, you get roped in, and you don't get told what actually it comes with. You don't get told the politics and business side of it. As time went on, things started to change.
All right, so he went to Crawley, and what was interesting is he had a manager, I can't remember his name. He was terrible.
This one man, he used to racially abuse us, throw stuff at us, shout us, he victimised us. He was a power-hungry man. He loved to have the power and basically have control of young players' dreams and absolutely just manipulise us.
And you bully them. You literally bully his team.
You read about things that are about young people and one way in which they've been treated, like potential safeguarding issues and all the issues that the Football Association have been investigating over the last 2 or 3 years, and the police have been investigating, by the way. Actually, when you think about that in its context, it's frightening.
Just being treated and talked to like absolute dirt is bad enough, but I think the worst thing that hurt me is because my relationship with my mum was being taken away from my mum. And not taken away as like, oh, you've been captured, blah, blah. It's literally like, you're going to lose your contract unless you move out and live in the worst area in Crawley, and you live there. You have to live there, otherwise we're going to take your contract away. I used to open the door and it used to hit the bed. So I used to live in a room, like literally I had to go this way in and walk like this. And for a young player, do you know how hard that is to get shouted at and victimised all day? Go home to a room like that and just sit and have like nothing. It used to just destroy me mentally. Like, that was probably the worst thing, because they only did it, for me, the lie was you have to live the professional dream and do it properly. This, all professionals do it. It will mature you. You're going to get signed to another club and you may have to live away from your parents, blah, blah. But there was no need for me to at this time in my life, and the time when I actually needed my mum the most. You're in a sport, right, where it's deemed to be, from the outside, the best life possible. Like you're earning thousands and millions of pounds. You're touring, you're going around the world playing football. You're playing the dream, the sport you love, right? So at a young age, you're like, who do you talk to? So who do you get the advice from to how do I enjoy this? Or how do I experience these things happening? Where do I get the advice from? I scored in my first touch. So like, no one told me like how I'd feel after that. Obviously I was skyrocketing. I remember not sleeping. I remember going home to digs and like being on a buzz, beyond being on a buzz, because I haven't experienced that. And then you have all the Twitters going off, the club knows about you, you're getting all these fans from Crawley talking about you, and that's the hype. And then it goes to like extreme lows where you're getting victimised and I'm getting kicked into my room and going back to digs and overthinking everything. Like if I get a bad correction about football, I'm overthinking it. Like it's going round in my head like, you're shit, rah, rah, you're crap. Like how could you do that? How did you miss that?
Any game that they play, if they haven't played as well as they thought they could, that's the first thoughts. Am I going to get dropped because of it? It brings about the negative thoughts. So why did they say that? Why hasn't he praised me? Why has he said that I didn't play as good as I can? What if I do this next time as well? What does that lead to? And
at a young age, because I wasn't mentally strong enough or mentally aware of like all the things going on in the club, I didn't look at outside views of the club struggling financially. I didn't realise like, oh my God, the chief execs are always changing and the managers aren't always stable, so my place can't be stable if their place isn't stable. You don't think about that. You're thinking, I'm going to be a footballer, I need to get another contract, I need to make him happy. That's all I know. We had a man who was power hungry, couldn't conduct himself professionally at all, and just ruined my idea of what a dream should be or how he should be looked after.
On the 23rd of February, Crawley Town organised a meeting to discuss the future of their youth.
They invited all the players and parents and families to the club. We went to the executive box lounge and we all sat down and we were all handed envelopes. They thanked us for our time at the club, and after that we were dismissed and everyone left and had to open the envelopes to see if they were being offered a contract or if they were not. All of us were released. We had no support, no help, that was it.
I thought Cecil was good at football, but I don't think he was aggressive enough for the politics of football.
Imagine like you've got a thing built up in your head. You've promised people the world, your family, everything. Like this is it. The world knows you as a footballer. You have a title.
As you can see, children who are out there at 16 and maybe not got that support, and then that happens to them. Devastating. Devastating.
Still to be told that you're not going to be good enough to play professional football for that club, or indeed to be good enough to become a professional footballer, that's like the final comment, so to speak. You know, his world drops apart overnight.
Players struggle to adapt, and then when they adapt, then the club says, thanks, but no thanks, we don't want you anymore. It's just, well, now who am I?
So they're in that bubble and all they live and breathe for potentially 9 years is football. You then take that away from someone. Not only do they lose their identity, physically they start to become less fit, and actually they put self-worth on the fact that they're a footballer.
I lied, kept my profile picture as a footballer, I told girls I was still a footballer, I told yeah, and I wasn't. It wasn't making me happy, it's just, I thought it would.
Almost like a support blanket or a comfort blanket is, if I don't tell anyone, they won't know about it. and sometimes it can be quite embarrassing to actually tell people that they haven't made it. I think the big message there is acceptance is key.
And then on top of that, you have all the social pressures of your friends think you're a footballer, you have your family think they're going to retire one day because you're a footballer, you have all of this demon in on you, but no one hears that. They just say, you're a footballer, you're lucky, you're getting paid to do what you love. Like, this is what comes with being a footballer. And I do agree, there's to an extent, but everyone's human at the end of the day, and that's what people forget.
I think the main thing though is to get it out, because when it's just in your head and it's all bottled up, everything seems a million times worse than what it may actually be at that particular moment in time. So I think you definitely need to have someone there that you can speak to, whether it is coming on social media or on platforms, or if it's just confiding within, a strong group of friends.
We know now that mental health is something that we talk about strongly in life now, and that there are players in the game that have reported mental health issues. And the game has to look at that now as being a very serious aspect.
Like the truth is, you may be in a team of 21 players. From the start of day .1, maybe like a month in, they know who they want to sign as a pro. They might have 2 in that 21, but you have to keep the 21 there to fill a team and put out every week to play other teams. But they're being lied to every day.
We're not the ones bringing in the revenue, are we? It's the first team they're more concentrated on. They're the ones who the fans pay their money to see. So the youth team they're great, it's good to have, but at the same time, the first team is what matters.
This is Jordan Patrick. He was and still is Luton's youngest ever debutant at the age of 16.
While the hype around me making my debut, people were coming up asking for my signature. It was an honour to obviously being from Luton. Do you know what I mean? To play for your hometown it's huge, it's huge. I remember having a meeting with my mum. My mum, my dad, and we sat down and they said to me, there's a lot of clubs interested in you, but we wasn't going to tell you unless they were top 4. Now Liverpool have actually come to us and sort of said they want to take you for a week, see what you like, get a feel for the area, etc, etc. And yeah, went there to stay with the family, play with people like Flanagan, who sort of made it first team obviously. Jamie Carragher took my first training session, and you're from Luton, we normally got kids from Spain, Brazil. I just said, yeah, been given the opportunity, been called up. But these times, I'm still training with the youth team, and you'd think after making your debut at 16 that you'd be able to train with the first team, or have an opportunity to sort of be around the first team, or to progress, to learn, to grow, to mature. And I didn't get that.
In your mind, you may potentially want to be somewhere, and if you don't feel like you're actually there at that particular time, that can have a massive psychological effect on you. And I think that is another thing as well that can hinder people from achieving their potential, because how many of those wonder kids have there been whereby when they're 18, they're dubbed to be the next best thing, and they fail to materialise and reach their full potential.
Everyone sort of asked me what's going on. I had nothing from Luton. It's only through the grapevine I found out that they actually offered 25 grand, I think it was at the time, and Luton asked for 250. I remember there was a scenario where I was walking home from training, just walking home, and 2 people from my neighbourhood, well, from the area, must have robbed someone for their bike. Now, it's unfortunate the person saw me and mentioned it to the club. Now, police have come in and they've said, right, you need to give that name up of who the people are, or we're going to release you. Well, that's what Luton have said. They were going to release you. Now, I'm not involved. I have no reason to, you know what I mean, to say the names. What's this got to do with football anyway? Why would you want to release me over something like this? So things like that was happening. That's where I just lost focus. Before the day of the meeting, there were 6 of us in the room, and I was the first one they called out. Now, everyone presumed who was there thought, yeah, John's getting a pro. He has to get a pro. Like, I've done more than most. Tell me, I'm the youngest player to play for the club. And we sat in the room, chairman, a few coaches, Alan Nelson, And they said to me, Jordan, and the way they looked to me, I thought, oh, here we go. Here we go. Yeah. And yeah, just told me that it wasn't tough for me. They're going to help me find somewhere. And at the time, my daughter was on the way.
Some of the boys fall out of love of football through academies, you know, accepting failure at such a young age.
When you're suffering and you're suffering in silence, and no one to talk to, no one can understand. Psychologically, you're like, wow, what am I worth? Like, nothing can prepare you for it.
It's almost like that bubble. That bubble's now burst, if we put it into that context. The brain, or the way the brain works, is that it craves certainty. As soon as we have uncertainty, we get more stressed as a result of it. By taking someone out of that environment, you've just promoted uncertainty, because now they don't know what they're going to do anymore.
The common denominator from Cecil and Jordan's stories was the shock and surprise of finding out they were released.
I think it just has to be embedded with everything they do alongside their education. The chances are you might not make it. So these are your options, and this is what that looks like in real life.
It's not just a situation where it's almost cataclysmic situation overnight, where a boy's literally been told the next day when he turns into a parents' evening, by the way, we're not keeping you. If he's not good enough to meet the standard, then it should have been prepared for in advance.
I had a lot of money once I left, initially at the start, but that money started dwindling because I was trying to travel and trying to chase the dream and go back into football, which no one tells you. Whilst you're travelling across the country to go to trials and find new clubs, you're paying for it all. When my mum said I need to get a job, I was like, why do I need to get a job? I've just come from being a footballer. Like, no, my ego was beyond sky high. I didn't know who I thought I was, but I was like, I'm not getting a job, I'm not working because I was a footballer.
Like I said, I started playing football at 9 years old. At 18, that's all I knew.
I had to literally say, forget this, like, what do I want to do for the rest of my life?
I thought, well, I'm always going to be a footballer, I'm going to be a footballer, I'm going to be a footballer. So to be told you're not going to be a footballer by a club that you thought, do you know what I mean, you spent half your life at, since you've been playing football, it's quite deep.
I was lost. You're lost, you're a young boy.
I didn't have no backup plan. The backup plan for me was, I'll be honest, the streets.
You take away someone's full-time job, they now don't have the money to support themselves, a lot of them, or their family. They don't have anything to do to fill their time. And actually, some of the people they grew up with might not be the right environment to then fall back into. And now you've taken away that idea that every single day they're going to be doing the same thing. They need to very quickly find something that can support them as well as football has in terms of the money, and support them as well in terms of a social system, and also support them in terms of their value or their self-worth.
That's why there's life skills specialists and there's schemes put in. It's dangerous.
I think there needs to be more of a focus around when young players are released and how we help them integrate almost back into society, because football kind of takes them away from society as such and puts it in its own bubble, you know. And that's a massive responsibility that the game needs to take more ownership of.
The Premier League and Football League adamantly defend the professionalism of their youth processes, which have improved since the introduction of the Elite Player Performance Plan in 2012. Leagues stress that boys who are taken on for the 16 to 18 scholarship must continue with education. Commonly, this is a BTEC sports diploma.
UFF went to Luton's academy facility to observe their practices after the PFA's player welfare plans were introduced.
In the academy, we have an education officer who is in constant contact with schools of all our boys that are signed from the age of under 9 through to under 18. If there's issues or troubles, or if it's good, you know, if we've got a boy that's excelling at drama, let's say, or he's an artist or whatever, we hear about that, and that's brilliant, because there's no guarantee they're going to be footballers. And as much as we want to encourage them to go for it, I think there's a balance to be struck there to make sure that they're ready for whatever comes their way.
Particularly as well, the PFA have picked up on that recently, that education is key.
There's been a big change. When I first came here 4 years ago, we only had 4 full-time members of staff. We've now got 10. So we've grown as well and tried to improve things over the years that I've been here. The football club's in a good place.
In recent years, there has been a huge influx of young English players seeking opportunities in America. We visited Soccer Assist Academy in Milton Keynes, a platform that provides a complete student-athlete experience, elite performance training, and yearly international tours.
We help students get placed into American universities on sports scholarships, and with the Soccer Assist Academy, we support students aged between 16 to 18 play football whilst at the same time as getting education and qualified in a BTEC level 3 in sport. So we try and mirror a top college USA program to make sure that all of our students have the best time before they look to progress into university. In the United States, you're considered what is called a student athlete, which means your student commitments come first and your athlete commitments come second. So the biggest thing that you're going to get out of it, as I said, is a bachelor's degree. Now, it's up to you what subjects you wish to study. So if a student is interested in sport, physics, business, whatever the interest lies in, they can study that subject.
It seems like clubs are moving in the right direction to ensure that there are less Cecils and Jordan Patricks of the world, putting more emphasis on the mental health of their kids. Cecil was a victim of the lack of care shown by clubs in the previous footballing regime, a rising footballer that was being neglected whilst chasing this seemingly impossible dream, going through painstaking pressures and misfortunes.
Once I got released, I was in a gap in life. I was stressed, if I'm honest. I had no backup. I thought, I'm going to keep chasing the thing that gets put in your head is once you get released, you can go to a lower club or you can keep chasing a dream, never give up. But at 19 years old, I got released and I said, you know what, I don't want to keep chasing a dream, I want to try something different. So I looked at dancing and performing, and I was kind of doing it on the side of when I was a footballer on my days off, and I went straight back into dancing once I got released. It flipped reverse. My life went from 0 to 100. Luckily got a massive opportunity. I got a scholarship to Italia Conti full-time training. It was massive. It was a full scholarship, which is £36,000 for the 3 years. And I took it, and it kind of changed my life.
It was clear that Cecil's knack of dancing had come from his athleticism in football. He has since performed in many theatres and featured in commercials for huge brands. What's more revealing is that he is running his own business, Talent Transfer, a programme focused around educating academy boys about the harsh truth of football and how they can harness their qualities for other sports.
Do cross-country. There's so many transferable skills that you can get into. I think having that fixed and narrow approach can be quite harmful.
To the young players, I speak to youth team players mainly about keeping up all your talents in other sports whilst being a footballer, because this is not just the full story of your life. This is only a chapter of football.
The harsh realities are that the odds will always be against their favour. However, the PFA and clubs are working together to ensure that children can carry on chasing the dream without the risk of falling into hell.